early for Mark to give us the high sign, and we'll go. Please stand.
You may be seated. Good morning and welcome to academic year 2021-2022. It has been a long time since we did this. It has been 2 years since we've had an in-person convocation, and so some energy is sort of coursing through me, and the excitement, at least here, of having new students and returning students on campus and meeting face-to-face for classes is just an exciting thing. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that and just remind you that you may have to settle me down a little bit today. So I would like to take an opportunity to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. And I hate to do this in the middle of a pivotal ceremony that is launching the careers, the academic careers of a few of you, but I don't know when we will get back together in this fashion prior to graduation, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. Item number one, please, when you're indoors, if you are not doing cardiovascular exercise and you're in a classroom, wear a mask. Wear a mask. I am not allowed to say that if you don't, we will just tase you. They told me I couldn't say that, so I'm not going to say that, and we're not going to do that, but please. The second thing, and more seriously, you've been asked to tell us if you're vaccinated or not via a survey available on my.Pfeiffer. I'm told that this is fairly simple. We just want to know how many of us are vaccinated. It's for data purposes. Please fill out the survey anonymously on my.Pfeiffer.edu. If you don't know how to do that or what my.Pfeiffer is, please proceed. I am told that if you do not do the survey, eventually your ID card, when you swipe to go into eat or print, things like that, will cease to function until you do the survey. And I hate to put that stick out there instead of a carrot, but please do the survey. It takes, I'm told, 30 to 45 seconds of your time to do the survey. So please, we want your ID cards to continue working. Finally, thank you for the 217 of you that did respond to the survey at my.Pfeiffer.edu. But 217, especially, we've got about 550 people living here, and we've got about 1,000 people in the community total. 217 is not enough for us to get my psychologist and my sociologist and my survey takers tell me that's not enough responders for us to get a good data sample. So please fill out the survey. It's my.Pfeiffer.edu, and we spell Pfeiffer with a PF. You're supposed to laugh. Can you laugh? Sorry. All right, finally, this is very important. Of the 217 responders, we note that 118 of you say that you're vaccinated. We're trying to prevent a breakout here that would just send us home next week, which we don't want. We're trying to prevent the cancellation of concerts, the cancellation of athletic events, the possibility that we would have to forfeit games. We're trying to up the number of people who are vaccinated on this campus, and we are doing so unashamedly. So there is a vaccination clinic on this campus in the Stokes Student Center at 11 a.m. from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. this Saturday. CVS is conducting that clinic. The first 25 people to get vaccinated get a $50 gift card. The second 25 get a $25 gift card. Somebody nod. I'm not telling lies, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's all true. They're telling me that that's all true. So that's your next opportunity to get vaccinated. Thank you for enduring the housekeeping. Previously vaccinated students, we're not punishing you. You are entered into a raffle for an electronic device. I believe it's a television. All right, I'm done with that. Everybody close your eyes for 3 seconds. I'm watching you, students. Yeah, I see you. Yeah. Clear your minds. Okay, open your eyes. Welcome. This is the official opening of the academic year at Pfeiffer University, and this is called Convocation. This moment is called Convocation, and it marks the beginning of each academic year here at Pfeiffer. And you'll hear that word we use a lot here, vocation, vocatio. I've talked to you some in the past few days about your calling. That word vocation or vocatio means to be called. In this case, convocation, we are being called together. And we are being called together in an official ceremony for today, but really we are being called together for the year. To the class of 2025, welcome. Everybody else, give them a welcome. You are a most interesting class of 2025. You are, for example, 50% male and 50% female. We've never had a class so evenly divided in our history, we think. You're almost exactly 50-50. Within the U.S., along the East Coast, you represent every state from New York to Florida. In all, you represent 21 states and 7 countries, including Canada, Mexico, Norway, Jordan, Portugal, Spain, and by the end of the week, Bolivia. There'll be someone joining you from Bolivia. Most of you are in that traditional student range this year, and I include that in my remarks because last year we had a freshman that was 65 years old. And so we don't have a 65-year-old freshman this year, but most of you are in that traditional student range. Some of you are not. We have some freshmen in their late 20s, in their 30s. Pay attention to the wisdom that they bring to the classroom and the different perspectives that they bring to you. Most of you are 18 years old and straight out of high school. And I just have one more word for you. Unlike your professors, unlike me, you do not know a world that does not employ smartphones for nearly everything, and the internet for nearly everything. From ordering textbooks to ordering food, to streaming movies, content, sporting events. You access the world, you access your gifts in ways that are completely different than a lot of us did when we were 18. So help us know you. Help us understand you. We believe you have been called together or called into a community in pursuit of the truth, and it takes all of us to comprehend that. The robots in our new health sciences building in Albemarle, where aspiring PAs, aspiring occupational therapists, the equipment in the Harris Science Building, where nurses and exercise science students will study, were unimaginable to us when we were born. And when you were born, they were unimaginable to you back in 2003. 2004, 2002. Business majors, when you were born, I'm not sure that we could have comprehended the opportunity to invest in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency of any kind. Education majors, and really everyone in the room, I'm not sure any of us could have imagined having to use Zoom or a video conferencing technology just to do our jobs, just to deliver content in the year 2003, 2004. Lots have changed. Indeed, you are entering college in perhaps the most rapidly changing period in our world, not just our country, our world's history. So you are different than us, and we need your help. We want to understand what you need. And yet, I think we are going to talk together for the next few years about issues that have existed for your entire lives, and indeed, for much of the world's history. When you were born, violence had just occurred in the United States on a grand level, and our country was in the midst of thinking about violence, enacting violence in Afghanistan. And indeed, thinking about the consequences of a regime change in Afghanistan. Have you watched the news this week? We're now pulling out and coming to terms with a regime change and what that means, and whether or not violence is always the best way to bring about our desired ends. As I sat yesterday with a sophomore, Mr. Miller from Iredell County. Are you in the room? As I sat at lunch, you stand up, Mr. Miller, would you? This is just, he doesn't know this is happening. Yeah, that's my lunch buddy yesterday. What's the name of your religion class this semester, Mr. Miller? Religion and American politics. That was my lunch discussion yesterday, and it might as well have been 2003, 2004. Smartphones or no smartphones. So we look forward to talking about you with important issues that have affected our society since time immemorial. And we look forward to learning with you about technologies of today that will push our family forward. We're thankful that you're here. I want to say one last thing. We've talked to you a lot in the last week about being independent. And I want to use that word with you very intentionally and very carefully. The responsibility is yours to learn where your science class is, where English 101 is happening. The responsibility of yours is yours to learn to wake up to an alarm clock if you didn't learn that 2, 3, 5 years ago. The responsibility is yours to establish a routine that allows you to study for a couple of hours each day outside of the classroom. In addition to going to class and participating in extracurricular activities. The responsibility is yours, it is yours, it is yours. But I want to return to that word, convocation, and that word that speaks to us about being called together. At its best, you or someone you love has invested a great deal so that you can be called into a community in pursuit of the truth. Whether you are studying nursing or English or education or music or business, whether you're pre-health or pre-law, whatever your vocation is, we are called together to think about truth. One of the best moments I've had this week is I sat just outside the door of a 9:30 a.m. class yesterday, and it was either an English 100 or 101 class, and the professor right there on the first floor of Jane Freeman Hall was telling the students at the very beginning of class, no matter what your major is, today I'm going to teach you how important it is to learn to communicate clearly and the art of that. I was so proud to just listen to that intro to that lecture, and I have no idea who was giving it. So independence, yes, but togetherness, yes. Hold those two things together. Use each other as wisely as you use the great texts that you will read together as well, and your experience at Pfeiffer will be even better than you anticipated when you made your decision to join the wonderful and talented class of 2025. Welcome. And at this time, I declare the 2021-2022 academic year open, and I invite Reverend Megan Hobbick at this time to provide our invocation. Thank you for coming.
Will you please stand with me for the invocation? Pray with me as you will. God of all things new, today we come to you with renewed excitement and enthusiasm. As with anything new, we are also anxious about what this year might bring. So as we begin our time together, provide us pause. Remind us that we are a people of compassion, kindness, and curiosity, and that sitting in discomfort and uncertainty and living in the question is not a burden, but a gift. That there is always room to ask questions, to not know, and to fail. But in that, we are called to learn from those experiences. As we journey together over this new academic season, may we remember that we are called to beloved community, that it is the cultivation of authentic and meaningful relationships that make us whole, and that we learn the most essential life lessons from one another. As we start our semester together, may we be courageous enough to be both servants and leaders, and show us the importance and necessariness of celebrating diversity and working alongside those who are different than us. Let us exemplify who we are and who we want to be by working collaboratively towards the common good. Amen.
They told me I had to return everybody else's speech.
All right, good morning, good morning. Greetings from the journey. Not too long ago is a cliche, much similar to back in my day, reminding me of stories of my grandparents. And the only thought that came to my mind then was like, here we go again. But now I realize how much time flies. As the bigger picture, it marks the beginning of a journey and the ending of another. Eventually, you will be in my shoes one day. Not all days are going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you will meet some amazing people here and forge unforgettable bonds. However, you have to take the very first step. My freshman year here, I guarantee you I stayed in my dorm 2 to 3 weeks, not really interacting with anybody, because I enjoy a peace of mind and I'm a bit shy personally. But every person I met here at Pfeiffer, they inspired me to break out my shell. And I'm thankful for every single one of them, even having the opportunity to speak in front of you all today. You may ask, what are the expectations here at Pfeiffer? Some come here to find themselves, some come here to create themselves, and others come here to break away from something. Some may be here with all their plans together, have all their plans for the future. Some may be here without any plans whatsoever. Either is okay, because the staff and students here will help you to find out what your plan is, or either further develop your plan for the future. So all are welcome here. To me, this is a place where you can lay the foundation out for your dreams and cultivate your ambition for the future. I've met people with all kinds of dreams and a multitude of perspectives. You may agree with some, you may disagree with others, but that's what makes us unique, you know? If you take anything from my speech here today, I hope you consider Pfeiffer as your new home. And I hope you also take the very first step to find out where your ambition is and also forge unforgettable bonds. Thank you all.
Ride on, King Jesus, no man can hinder me. Ride on, King Jesus, ride on, no man can hinder me. For he is King of kings, he is Lord of lords. Jesus Christ, the first and last, no man works like him. For he is King of kings, Lord of lords. Jesus Christ, the first and last, no man works like him. King Jesus rides a milk-white horse, no man works like him. River of Jordan he did cross, no man works like him. For he is King of kings, Lord of lords. Jesus Christ, the first and last. Oh, King Jesus rides in the middle of the air. Oh, he calls his saints from everywhere. Oh, ride on, King Jesus. No man can hinder me. Ride on, King Jesus. Ride on. No man can hinder me. He is the King. He is the Lord. Ah, yes, he is the King. He is the Lord. Ah, Jesus Christ, the first and last. No man works like him. Ride on, ride on, ride on, ride on, Jesus.
Good morning. Before I get started, if you'll mind me just a moment of self-indulgence. I want to extend a welcome not only to you all gathered, but also to the people who may have tuned in via our live feed, and in particularly my parents, Bruce and Nita Thompson. And I say this especially to you guys, that even in your 50s, even some 30-odd years removed from freshman year, your parents are still gonna wanna know that you're safe, that you're doing well, and even wanna take opportunities to share in prideful moments like the opportunity to speak in front of you today. So welcome all of you out there, and hey, Mom and Dad, I'm doing fine. Drove safe this morning. But in all seriousness, it is a privilege to be asked to address our incoming class of students in this formal setting. And on behalf of my colleagues here, I welcome you home to Pfeiffer. And I hope that you're beginning to feel settled into our community, and I wish for you all a successful first semester. When I was asked to share some remarks today, I immediately thought back to several years ago when I was asked to do something similar in what we then called an induction ceremony. Typically, this was the first Saturday of move-in and an opportunity for first-year students to gather together. And I looked over those notes from August of 2016 and again from 2019, and I was surprised. Even as much as our world has changed, even as much as we have been disrupted over the past 18 months, that so much from those messages continues to resonate, at least resonates for me. So it is with apologies to any students, and I know that there are some students here gathered who would have heard those talks, and any faculty and staff who may have been at those events to hear a revised version of those remarks. And so I hope maybe there'll be something new for you to take away from that. So I would like to use my time this morning to emphasize the ideals that I think have guided Pfeiffer over its many years. And those are honor, community, and civility. Now, I suspect that in the various welcoming conversations that you've had with Dr. Bullard, Dean Lafitte, your coaches, RAs, and peer mentors, these themes have emerged in some way, shape, or form. There's no doubt in my mind that your first-year seminar instructors will guide you in discussions that revolve around these ideas as they help you connect to what it means to be a member of the Pfeiffer family. Often, it's been a chat with Dr. Jim Gullidge with new students related to the topic of our honor board and student support services, where a plea to embrace honor, community, and civility is first raised. To help his audience make a personal connection to the concepts, Dr. Gullidge asked the group to think about that one good person who has made an influence on our lives. Typically, he would argue that one good person embodies the ideal that we at Pfeiffer aspire to. I know that's true for me. So it's with that in mind that I want to introduce you, or maybe potentially reintroduce you, to John Lewis. I think that his life might be both instructive and provide a challenge to how you might approach your time at Pfeiffer and beyond. John Lewis was born in 1940 in Pike County, Alabama, just outside of the town of Troy. Pike County, I think, has a lot of similarities to Stanley County. Few small cities of note, but most experiences defined by a rural farming way of life. The context of Lewis's life growing up, however, was strikingly different from our own. An agricultural economy dominated by sharecropping and Jim Crow segregation defined his early years. This created lasting economic disparity between the races and stifled access to a complete education for most. But Lewis was driven by parents and relatives to look beyond the limits of Pike County. Their encouragement inspired him to dream, to imagine a different future for himself, even as he helped work the plot of land that his parents rented. Listen to how he describes this in his memoir, Walking with the Wind. And this is Lewis speaking. If there is a single point in my childhood that provided an early glimpse into my future, a first indication of what would come to shape my character, qualities I certainly could not name at the time, such as patience, compassion, nonviolence, civil disobedience, and not a little bit of willful stubbornness, it would be the years my parents gave me the responsibility of taking care of our family's chickens. I never had any feelings one way or another about the rest of the animals that came and went on our farm, but I was always drawn to the chickens. Their absolute innocence. They seemed so defenseless, so simple, so pure. No one else saw them that way. Maybe it was their outcast status, the very fact that those chickens were so forsaken by everyone else, that drew me to them. From the beginning, though, I never took the chickens straight out to the yard to feed them. For some reason, I felt a need to talk to them, and for some reason, they listened. I preached to my birds just about every night. I would get them all in the hen house, settle them onto their roost, and then stand in the doorway and speak to them, reciting pieces of the Bible, the same verses I memorized for Sunday school. They would sit very quietly, some slightly moving their heads back and forth. I could imagine they were my congregation, and me, I was a preacher. For the teenage Lewis, the world seemed to be rapidly changing, at once hopeful, but also reflecting the struggle, pain, and violence that can come with transforming societies. And so think about this in Lewis's context. Mid-1950s, he's a teenager, he's coming into his own, and you have the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision, which begins to unlock a lengthy process of the desegregation of the school system. You have the Montgomery Bus Boycott, which showcases the heroism and activism of those like Rosa Parks and the budding leadership of a young preacher named Martin Luther King Jr. But sandwiched in between that, you also have the lynching of a teenager named Emmett Till, Chicago boy who was visiting relatives in Money, Mississippi, when he was killed in cold blood, and without any justice for his murderers. Lewis often found himself contemplating his role, his responsibility to himself, to his community in the midst of these changing times. He tells and shares that he even reached out to Dr. King himself in 1957 and was given a bus ticket to come and visit and sit with King in Montgomery so they could talk about these responsibilities that one might have to the community in the midst of transformation. In those surroundings, Lewis was provided the opportunity to go to college in Nashville. Not a small thing from someone coming from Pike County, Alabama. He studied at the American Baptist Theological Seminary and Fisk College, both very notable, even at the time, HBCUs. By 1960, he faced a tension between the desire, his dream to get an advanced formal education, and getting directly involved in the emerging modern civil rights movement. Lewis was part of the student leadership that defined nonviolent direct action campaigns. He was involved in the lunch counter sit-ins in Nashville. He opted to leave college in the spring of 1961 prior to his final exams during his senior year in order to participate in what's known as the Freedom Rides that tested laws against segregation in interstate travel. I just want to repeat that notion one more time. This is a first-generation college student. Parents sacrificed everything. He worked hard to get where he was, and he opted to leave college to get involved in something bigger. During the Freedom Rides, he was beaten in his home state of Alabama. He was jailed in Mississippi. This was one of somewhere up to 45 imprisonments that Lewis faced over the course of his lifetime. He was in the frontline leadership of the budding student movement structure. He led the Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March. He was a platform speaker at the March on Washington, shared by luminaries such as King and A. Philip Randolph, longtime civil rights activists. For Lewis and his family, there was no doubt how important his education was. All made sacrifices for his opportunity to move beyond the limits that his parents faced. His desire to be part of the creation of what he and others called the beloved community gave him the courage to put his own future and his safety on many occasions aside for the greater good he thought was within reach. For this leadership, for his example of selflessness, I consider John Lewis one of my heroes. I've had the good fortune to meet him on a couple of occasions. And that very first opportunity in the spring of 2008, in all honesty, it kind of worried me. I mean, I was awestruck, for one, but then there's always that thing about meeting your heroes finally face to face, and sometimes that can be a little bit disappointing or less than what you expected. This was not one of those occasions. So I bucked up the courage to go and speak to my hero, and I asked him, what message should I bring back to my students in Meisenheimer? And his response was very straightforward. He looked me right in the eye and he said, tell them to get in the way. Get in the way. You often heard Lewis, who served as a longtime congressman representing the district that includes Atlanta, Georgia, giving this call to action alongside his insistence that we get in trouble. Good trouble. Necessary trouble. But I want to make sure that my message is clear before Dr. Bullard and any of our student development leaders wonder why I'm giving you the license to get in trouble. John Lewis's adult life was focused on social justice and civil equality, working to open a society that is accessible to all. He gave up a great deal in those efforts. He gained a lot also. Throughout, he never stopped seeking out ways to change people's lives for the better. One of the many examples is a man named Marcus Sawyers. May be familiar to some around these parts. Marcus Sawyers is a graduate of Pfeiffer, class of 2018. Through our Capitol Hill internship program, which I'm happy to talk to you about offline sometime later, Marcus earned a position as an intern for Congressman Lewis during the spring of his senior year. He marks that experience as a transformative moment in his life. Lewis and his staff welcomed Marcus and treated him as an equal. After graduation, he moved into full-time employment in Lewis's congressional office. These successes, however, were not without some degree of sacrifice and loss. Marcus had to give up his final season on this very court as one of the leaders in Pfeiffer's basketball program in order to take on that opportunity in DC. Shortly before graduation, that later May, Marcus's mother passed away. And when asked about his experience, Marcus wrote to me that he owed, and I'm quoting him, a lot of his success in Washington to Congressman Lewis. Under his mentorship, he continues, I was able to develop into the young man I am today. Although hard times will come, Marcus said, it's important to remember that brighter days will come. Congressman Lewis used to tell me, never get lost in a sea of despair. Always keep the faith. In December 2019, John Lewis announced that he had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He passed away in July of 2020. Before his death, he composed a series of reflections for a new generation called Carry On. In the final installment titled On the Future, Lewis writes, "I would love to see that our beloved community, the place we call home, America, will be more at peace with itself. Let us hope and believe that there will be less turmoil, less rancor, less violence. America should be a place of respect and dignity, a beacon of light for all our fellow human beings. I know it's within our power to make such a world exist. Be patient, be hopeful, be humble, be bold," Lewis instructs. You'll be asked over the course of this year and throughout the rest of your lives, if we're being honest, to make a number of decisions that have an impact on you and on others. You'll face the challenges of our complex and often divided world. Your education will help you negotiate these fault lines, especially if you have a clear vision of what you want out of this experience. And even more so if you understand what you'd be willing to give up and sacrifice for along the way. Let me illustrate this point in a slightly different way. Often at the opening weeks at colleges and universities around the nation, some speaker, no doubt in regalia like my own, will ask assembled students to look to the left, look to the right at the students seated beside you. They'll say, "One of you won't make it to graduation, may not even make it to sophomore year." Maybe someone has already said that to you over the course of this past weekend. I think that's done to shock new students into a reality. The statistics do, in fact, bear themselves out. I read this past summer that roughly 40% of entering college students in the United States don't make it to their second year. But I want us to flip that script as we look forward to this semester. Instead of us imagining our future without 1/3 of this room, why don't we start thinking now about how we might combat the statistical realities that we face? You guys play a significant role in that. Part of making that change, I believe, is trying to do daily things to create the beloved community here in the village. My charge to you is to try to figure out where you fit into that dynamic. How might you ensure not only your success, but also the success of the people sitting beside you? A good place to start, I will argue, is in the space of honor, community, and civility. So, all my best in the coming semester, and thank you for the time.
So let me remind you all that if you have an 11 o'clock class, don't fret. If you're a little late, your professor, many of whom are here, will show you some grace. Dr. Thompson and I are getting ready to go a little rogue here on the Webb Award because we have a special surprise. The Mary E. Foster Webb and Henry Thomas Toby Webb Jr. Award for Excellence in Teaching was first awarded in 2019. The award was created by the Webb children, Tom Webb and Mary Webb Lathan, in honor of their parents, both of whom were beloved educators in our community. Mrs. Webb was a teacher for approximately 30 years. The majority of her career was spent as an educator for the Albemarle City Schools. Dr. Webb began teaching and coaching at Albemarle High School in 1947, and in 1959 he became the first principal of Albemarle Junior High School. He went on to serve as principal of Albemarle Senior High School in 1966. In 1966, he became superintendent of the Albemarle City Schools, where he served until his retirement. He received an honorary doctorate from Pfeiffer University in 1976. Dr. and Mrs. Webb valued education, and they made an incredible impact on the lives of their students. In that spirit, the Webb Award is meant to recognize, publicly acknowledge, and reward Pfeiffer faculty who are nominated by members of the graduate or undergraduate student body and ultimately selected by a committee including a faculty member, a staff member, an undergraduate and graduate student body representatives, and the provost. The recipient of the Webb Award receives a $1,000 cash award and a $1,000 professional development award.
We've been doing this for just a fair few years now, and at least to the faculty at our assembly last May, our second recipient of the Webb Award for Excellence in Teaching was awarded to Dr. Beth Harrison, and we would like to make certain that because we did not have this event during our COVID year last year, that we were able to rectify that situation today. And so all the nominees were considered, and Dr. Harrison was lifted up as the deserving recipient. And I want you to listen to how students have described her: an advocate, a mentor. She helped me realize my potential. She was always available to provide feedback. Dr. Harrison goes beyond the normal requirements to provide opportunities for students to be successful. She's constantly willing to help. She's a source of positivity. She's always looking for the best way to further the student's education. Dr. Harrison embodies the ideal that the persons at Pfeiffer University are a family. One student said, "I have selected courses solely because this faculty member was the professor of the course." Now, I could go on endlessly, but instead, I would like for you to join me to congratulate Dr. Beth Harrison on this well-earned award, our second recipient of the Webb Award for Excellence in Teaching.
The third recipient of the Webb Excellence in Teaching Award is Dr. Amy Belmore. Listen to what one student said about Dr. Belmore. Dr. Belmore is an amazing advisor and instructor. She has connected me with several people which will open many doors for me. I can't think of anyone better for this award. And this comment comes from another voice. This professor cares for her students' well-being, and she tries to be flexible. She understands her students and treats them like older adults. In addition, I would note that Dr. Belmore was faculty senate chair for the past 2 years, which included many challenges and transitions because of COVID-19. She was also instrumental in my onboarding as provost at Pfeiffer. Please congratulate our colleague Amy Belmore on this well-earned award. Amy, would you join me?
Good morning. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. As I was driving to Pfeiffer this morning, I thought, did I ever think back? I thought back, and it was 56 years ago that I was actually sitting in your place as a freshman. And I was sitting in Myrna Gym. Interestingly enough, Myrna Gym was about 3 buildings up from here, and it's now called, I think it's called the Knapp Center. As a matter of fact, I was sitting in the audience with one of the Knapp brothers. And I think this building was completed in the fall of 1971. I graduated in the spring of 71, so I didn't have the opportunity to take much advantage of the building until after I graduated. And next month is homecoming, and we celebrate my class, the 50th reunion. Now, you know, you math majors are sitting out there going, now wait a minute. 56 years ago, he was a freshman. 50th, that's certainly not 4 years. Well, you know, I hope that you enjoy Pfeiffer as much as I did. The one thing that I do not wish on you, and freshmen, please listen. Number one, I thought about what you said, Dr. Thompson. The guy to the left and the guy to the right, I was both. Because at the end of my freshman year, I had a grade point average of less than 1. So Pfeiffer asked me to leave, and I did. I went home, and my parents said, you know, I'm not really sure we're going to spend any more money on your education. So I went to work. I worked for about 3 months, and I went, I am not doing this the rest of my life. So I saved my money, and Pfeiffer accepted me back reluctantly, and I was able to graduate in 1971. But that's not why I'm here. I've had the privilege for the last couple of years to sit on the alumni board. And the alumni board gives 3 awards, 2 of which are to alumni, and 1 is to a member of the staff at Pfeiffer. The recipient this year has never shied away from hard work. At a young age, they decided they wanted to go to work. And their mom said, look, you can do that on 2 conditions. Number 1, you have to keep your grades up. And number 2, you have to save at least 20% of your earnings. He was a little reluctant in doing that, but he did, and that meant that the money that he saved certainly helped pay for his college education. And when he graduated, he went into the retail world and eventually went into banking. While he was in the banking world, he was able to lead some of the classes and got the teaching bug. Well, he decided to go back to school and got his master's and PhD while working full-time. And in 2015, he became a professor at Pfeiffer University. But that's not why I'm here. He felt that there was more to teaching than reading a book, and it's important to learn by doing. He's brought in several successful alumni to tell their story and uses real-life situations to enhance learning. But that's not why I'm here. He works with prospective students to explain to them why Pfeiffer is, in fact, home. He's written several ebooks. He even has a blog. But that's not why I'm here. I have a friend, and possibly he's in the audience today. His name is Gary Ward, and Gary won one of the alumni awards a couple of years ago. And in his acceptance speech, he talked about 4 of his professors that would be part of his Mount Rushmore. Now, I've talked to several students that have had this professor, some of which are in the audience today, some of which have graduated. And they talked about what this recipient meant to them. As a matter of fact, some of the graduates talked about the fact that he is responsible for them receiving early promotions. He is all about giving, and certainly giving back to his students and not receiving. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why I'm here. Please join me in congratulating this year's Beyond Boundaries Award to Dr. Rashawn Gross.
Students, printed in your service order of service here is a pledge that I would invite you to recite with me, and community, at the appropriate time, please respond. As a student at Pfeiffer University, that you all, with me, please read with me. I agree to uphold and community.
Welcome you as members of our community, scholars and servant leaders. Please stand.
you continue today, remember that you are called to honor, community, and civility. And as you continue on your Pfeiffer journey, remember to love more, judge less, and always be moved towards compassion. Amen, and go in peace.